Well, hello, and welcome back to that thing we like to call Curless Mania, where we talk all things pop, rock, and prog. I am your host, Tom Curless, and I'm here today to talk about one of my favorite artists of all time, Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. Sounds like a law firm, but it was actually a rock band. And they did that on purpose because they did not want to be locked in to a band. They wanted to be able to, they had already been in bands, right? They had been in the Hollies and the Byrds and the Buffalo Springfield, and they wanted to be free agents, essentially. They wanted to create this partnership, or what they used to call it a mothership all the time, the mothership. But then they wanted to be able to do solo records with their own name. They wanted to have their name in the band so they could go and do solo records as well. And it was an experiment that worked for a while. Actually worked very well for a while. As time went on, things changed, obviously, as we all know. For example, 2 videos ago, if you look at my channel, I did disappointing records, and one of those was American Dream from 1988, when they did this huge CSNY reunion album, and everyone was all excited about it, and it was not up to par. Even the guys in the band, Graham Nash, I think, said it wasn't the greatest. Neil Young said the timing was bad, and Stephen Stills said he barely remembered recording it. So, there was just, it wasn't, and it was right after Crosby had come out of jail. So it probably wasn't a good time for them to make a record. Nonetheless, it was, as I said in that video, it was disappointing because I love the artist so much, right? So I got to start with that. I do love CSNY. I grew up with them, essentially. I remember listening to Deja Vu when I was 8-9 years old. So their music has been in my life, my whole life. So almost the whole life. So anyway, so I'm here to talk about, I'm going to rank the live records today, because this video was inspired by a recent purchase, which I'll bring up again later. But I figured I would just look at all the live records and rank them accordingly. Okay. So let's dive in. No time like the present. So I'm going to start with number 5. There's 5 live albums. And the 5th one is going to be Deja Vu Live. And I don't own it, so I'm going to put a little picture of it right here, right there. I'm not sure which side. This one comes in at number 5 because, this is really, if we really go down to brass tacks on this one, this is really a Neil Young release with special guests Crosby, Stills, and Nash. That's what it feels like to me. And this was a soundtrack to a movie that Neil made about the tour. He had made an album called Living with War, and this is 2006, I believe, was the tour. And he had made an album called Living with War, which was all about, the Iraq War and Afghanistan and all these different wars, and basically saying that, the Bush administration had screwed up, and it was very specific, and how horrible war is. Which I, of course, going to agree with that. And he wanted to go on the road to support this record, and he booked a tour. Essentially, this was a Neil Young tour. And from what I can read and what I've seen and the research that I've done, it's almost like he called Graham Nash and David Crosby and said, "Hey guys, do you want to go on tour? You want to listen to my album?" And then they listened to the record and they said, "Yeah, it's cool." And they said, "You want to go on tour to help me support this record?" They said, "Sure, of course." Of course they were going to say yes. Neil at this point was way, his cachet was way higher than the rest of CSN at this point. He had become a big star. He had been super successful as a solo artist, and he could double their gate. So if CSN went out on their own by this point in 2006 or whatever time it was, if they went out on tour, they would get half the receipts, or half the, they couldn't fill the halls that Neil could. So he held the cards at this point. He called the shots. And I believe it was Graham's book, Wild Tales, where he talks about this tour, and he says that it was I think it was Graham's book, might have been another book, where they talked about how Neil was controlling this tour. He basically said, "Look, every song that we do has to do with war or military or politics. You can't really talk that much between songs, and if you do, you have to talk about the songs. Or he was very controlling about what they could do and what they couldn't do. And they used to do like high fives and like, yeah, and like compliment each other on stage and stuff. He's like, no, don't do any of that. We're not doing any of that on this tour. We're going to be very serious. And what's interesting is that on this album, he says, Graham at one point says, right before Wooden Ships, he says, "Don't eat the brown acid," which I can almost feel Neil cringing when he says that, because he didn't want comments like makes them seem like they're old hippies from Woodstock. And I'm sure he was like, no, that's not what I'm looking for. Don't say that. But it's interesting that it's in the record and it's on the album. So, I mean, they didn't edit it out. So, but anyway, this record, to get to the album itself, it's okay. It's not bad. Actually, the version of Deja Vu on this is pretty good. It's pretty well done. And the thing that surprises me about this album is how great Crosby sounds. I mean, Crosby sounds very good. His vocals are sounding amazing considering how much damage he had done to himself in the 80s. And it's like, wow, I can't believe that his voice is sounding that great. In fact, that kind of happened for the rest of his career. I mean, when he's making solo albums later, they all sounded really good too. So his voice stayed in great shape. And it's a miracle considering the abuse he had, self-abuse he had done to himself. So yeah, there's a couple. Deja Vu sounds pretty good. There's a couple tracks on here that sound good, but I don't know. Overall, I can barely hear stills on this album. I can barely hear any vocals. On occasion, you can say, "Oh, I think that's Steven singing," but he doesn't. There's not a lot of Steven vocals on this album. I mean, you can hear him playing a lot, and his guitar playing sounds great, but his vocal wise, you don't hear him very much. So that's interesting. It still is a sort of MIA on this record. So there's a lot of things that make it number 5. It's just, to me, it's Neil Young tour, Neil Young album, Neil Young. It's with special guest CSN. It's not really a CSNY. It doesn't feel like a one entity to me. It just doesn't. So that makes it number 5. Okay, on to number 4, which was an easy choice as well, which is Allies from, I believe it's 1983. This came out on Atlantic, and I think they put this out because Daylight Again was such a hit. I don't think they were expecting Daylight Again to be a hit, and originally there was no plan to tour Daylight Again. There was no tour planned because Crosby was in such bad shape, and they barely got him through the recordings, honestly. There was no tour plan, but then finally Southern Cross was a hit, and so was Wasted on the Way. I believe it was also on the radio and it was a kind of a hit. So that Daylight Again sold pretty well. And Atlantic was like, okay, you guys should get on the road and promote the album because it's a hit record. So they were like, Crosby is in such bad shape. But they decided to tour in any case. They just said, okay, we're going to do this and just figure this out. And it was kind of a messy tour, to be honest. I mean, Crosby was in horrible shape, and he was the only way he had to have drugs with him or he couldn't function. So he was just doing drugs the whole tour, like massively. And you can see there's a recording. And I think that a lot of this album comes from this live recording that they did at the end of that tour. And you can see that Crosby's in terrible shape, and that's probably why they have these blurry pictures on here because he looks terrible. You can tell that he's strung out. It's bad. So that's really the problem with this album, and it's kind of and Graham Nash in his book calls it a patch job. They really just threw this together because there's 2 studio tracks, War Games and Raise a Voice. I think that both came from the Daylight Again sessions, extras. And then there's 2 songs that are from the 1977 tour, which was the tour supporting CSN, from Houston, Texas. And that is, For Free, which is a Joni Mitchell cover, and Shadow Captain, which is a Crosby song. So Crosby was in better shape in 77 than he was in early 80s, let me tell you. So I'm sure that's what drove that decision. But because those are both Crosby songs. And but it's not bad. I mean, there's a couple tracks on here that aren't too bad. I mean, Dark Star is pretty good. You know, they always did Blackbird pretty well. Wasted on the Way isn't too bad. But for what it's worth, it's kind of it's like they kept wheeling that song out. It was just like, you don't have to put that on every release, man. But I don't know. This was just, you know, it's okay. It's not bad, but it's not like, it's not high tier CSN or see it, you know. So it's not this, you know, Neil Young had nothing to do with this. This is just a CSN release. Okay, so that's an easy 4. Number 3, this is where we start getting into the good stuff, really good actually, and that is CSN 1974 at number 3, and this is a document, 3-disc document, 3 CDs worth of the stadium tour that they did in 1974. And you can see from the cover that, I mean, look at that, they're playing huge stadiums, and this album or this tour was nicknamed the Doom Tour by Crosby because for many reasons. And one being that it seemed like they were kind of doing this for the money. Like I think a lot of people were dangling stuff saying like, you guys can make so much money right now if you regroup and go out. Cause like Bob Dylan had just done it and he had kind of laid the groundwork where like, you could go out and do stadiums and make a ton of money and just do a tour and you're going to be, you know, and sure enough, they were all like, okay, let's do it. Like, why not? If we're going to make that much money. Okay. So it was almost like they were doing it for the money just right off the top. So it's like, that's not a good reason to be doing it. So anyway, so that, and also the fact that they, you know, playing stadiums, it's going to be really hard to do this quiet acoustic music. And that's what they were known for. Let's be honest. CSN was known for that acoustic set that they would always do where they would sit around in chairs like they're doing here. But you can see, like, how can the guy way in the back there hear this quiet acoustic music, you know, and they were having trouble doing that. And that was one of their specialties. And I think the acoustic set was harder and harder to pull off in these huge venues. So they would cut it short and do longer sets of electric stuff, which is fine. Actually, some of the electric stuff on here is excellent because at this point, Stills is still in great form. He's still ripping it up. And of course, Neil is as well. And the Neil Young stuff on here has to be said, I mean, is incredible. I mean, I think he had just released On the Beach at this point. So they do a version of On the Beach on here and it's, with Stills on guitar and they're dueling. Oh, it's cool. It's a really cool version of it. And they do, what's the other one? There's a couple. Don't Be Denied is really good on this. What's the Traces? Oh my God. Traces is incredible. And the other one that's incredible is Push It Over the End. I mean, these are songs that were never released at the time. They were like Neil Young gems that never got released, which is kind of strange. Never really got official until this album. And man, so good. If there's anything that I go back to on this, it's always those. But that being said, it's not. I mean, the rest of it is not like bad by any stretch. I mean, Love the One You're With is excellent. Really good opener. Wooden Ships is very good. You know, and then what's cool about this too is that there's a bunch of songs that they had just written that they were performing. You know, like Nash does Field Worker. Some of the other songs I mentioned by Neil Young already. Stills does Myth of Sisyphus on here, and he also does what's the other one? Johnny's Garden is really good on this too. I love that. And then he does, what's the other Stills song that he does that's new? Oh, come on, where is it? My Angel is the other one that ends up on Stills, right? Because he does that album Stills in 75, that solo record. That's actually pretty good. That's kind of an underrated record. I go back to that record a lot. That Stills album from 75 is good. So anyway, but there was a lot of indulgences going on in this tour that, I mean, it's well documented. It was like they were being treated like kings everywhere they went, and any little whim that they had, it was like anything they wanted, anytime, anywhere. It was like a little much. And really, from what I understand, they didn't make as much money as they wanted to on this tour because of all of the expenses that were going into coddling them, essentially, and drugs and alcohol and expensive hotel suites and, anything. They were just, apparently they had like pillowcases with, like that were embroidered with CSNY on them. I mean, it was just like, it was crazy. At the time, it was totally over the top. So I think that was why, from the outside, it looked like a huge, massive success. But from the inside, apparently it was kind of a weird tour. So, but that being said, this is still really, really cool to listen to. I really enjoy this live record. There's some really huge highlights on this, actually. So that's number 3. Number 2 is going to be the classic Four-Way Street. And this is the album that I remember listening to when I was younger, and I was fascinated by it because this is them at full strength. I mean, this is the tour for Deja Vu, and they were on top of the world at this point. They had started out, I mean, their debut album did very, very well, but Deja Vu like pushed it to a higher level once Neil was fully involved and bringing songs in. And they were, I mean, at this point, they were being touted as the American Beatles. People were looking for a new band because the Beatles had broken up. So it was like, who's going to be the next Beatles? And the people were thinking these guys would be the next Beatles. I mean, that's high praise. I mean, holy crap, right? I mean, there's no way that's not going to get to their heads, right? So everyone's ego started to get a little bit out of control at this point. And honestly, Atlantic released this record because after the tour, they all went their separate ways, and they were testing the whole thing of, okay, we're all going to make solo records now. Steven went off and made his debut solo record. Graham Nash made Songs for Beginners. David Crosby made If I Can Only Remember My Name, and Neil made After the Gold Rush. So just really all of those records are fantastic albums. So, I mean, they were really at the height of their powers at this point. So, but this album documents the tour from 1970. And as usual, they did an acoustic set and an electric set. So, and that was what was really unique about CSNY back in the day, was they could do both. They could do the really gentle acoustic thing with pristine harmonies, and they would also do little solo sets where, Neil would do a few songs by himself. Still, Steven would do a couple songs by himself. Graham would come on and do a couple songs, and they would and it was very casual. It was like, okay, Neil's going to come on now. Okay, Steven's going to come on now. And people loved it. It felt like you were walking into someone's house and they were just had a house party, and they're like, oh yeah, Neil's going to come in and play a couple songs. It felt like you lived someone's living room. And I think people loved that. It was very intimate. And then the second half, they'd say, okay, we're going to take a break. We'll be back in a minute. And then they would set up the electric stuff, and they would plug in the guitars and start jamming out. And they would play like really heavy, hard rock with dueling guitars from Neil and Steven. And people are like, wow, okay, they went after this gentle thing. Now they're like rocking out. So they really could do both, which was really cool. However, I will say, that being said, the jamming does get a little bit, just a little. It's my only quibble with this album. The jamming does get a little bit over the top at times, where I think it's Carry On is the one where you're like, okay, it just goes on and on and on. You're like, okay, this is getting a little bit, okay, like, let's wrap it up. Like when you're listening to it, I'm sure when you were watching it and you were there, it's a different thing, right? I mean, Led Zeppelin has that going on too on Song Remains the Same with Dazed and Confused that goes on forever, like 25 minutes. You're like, okay, like the theremin and the bow and it's all cool. But like when you're listening to it, you get kind of bored because you don't have the visuals to go with it. So it kind of happens with this too a little bit, especially on the electric set. And the acoustic set keeps me entertained the whole time. The electric set gets a little bit, my mind starts to wander just a little. That's all, just because it kind of goes on and on. But that's it. But it's still a very good live record, really. And there was, the other famous thing about this album was that there was no overdubs at all. I mean, none. It was a very raw, very honest account of a show. In fact, Steven apparently wanted to do overdubs on it, and Crosby said, no, we need to just keep it honest, keep it real. And that being said, there's some flat, I mean, you can hear some flat singing, and like they could have fixed a lot of stuff on this album, but they decided not to. And in some ways that's kind of cool. It was a really honest document. It's almost like an official bootleg of sorts, with a good sound. That's what it kind of feels like sometimes, because it's really, there's no overdubbing. There's nothing. There's no fixing anything on this. Because a lot of live records, come on, there's a lot of live records they call live, and like there was a lot of fixing going on behind the scenes and overdubbing, and it's, yeah. So the things that you think are live records are they're live, basically live, but there's a lot of other stuff going on. So anyway, this album is a true live record. So that's kind of cool. I'll give it points for that. Okay, so we got it to number one, and number one is easily, I have to say, Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, live at the Fillmore East, 1969. And this is the album I referred to earlier that I just purchased. And man, this album is so good. I listened to this and I was blown away. I mean, for any fan, this is absolutely essential. And this is the opposite of American Dream. This goes beyond your expectation almost. That's how good it is. And this is right. I mean, this hits them right when they're still, the debut album had come out. Neil had joined the band not that long previously before this. And he was fairly new to the band, and they went out and started playing live. And you can feel there's just so much camaraderie. There's so much love between them. I mean, at one point, and Helplessly Hoping on this, see, I kept the hype sticker, but on Helplessly Hoping, they start laughing. And that's how, relaxed, casual, and comfortable they are on stage, where they make each other laugh in the middle of the song. You can tell Steven's trying to hold back laughter the whole time. And then finally at one point they just start laughing. So that's a cool moment. I kind of like that. And this record is it sounds amazing. It's so quiet when you put it on. It's got a, oh my God, it sounds so good for something that was recorded in 1969. And it's just a thing of beauty. I mean, I usually don't show this, but you pull it out and it's like, oh, look at that. It's just got this really nice label. And then you pull it out and it's on clear vinyl, and it's hefty. It's 180 gram and it's clear vinyl, and it's such a thing of beauty. I love it. A lot of care went into making this. And I think Rhino put this out. Is that correct? I think. So this was just a great reissue. Yeah, Rhino did this, and whoever pressed it, and it sounds fantastic. They did an amazing job. And this is why vinyl, that's why I love vinyl. It just sounds different and it feels different. There's just something about it. It's hard to put your finger on, but, somebody put a lot of care and effort into this release, and you can tell. And the acoustic set on this is so great. I mean, they do. Oh, that's another thing, right? I got to bring this up. So this is important. The whole Sweet Judy Blue Eyes is on this, the entire thing. Okay. On this, which is odd, very strange, it fades in during the last part of Sweet Judy Blue Eyes. All you hear is the do 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 do. That's all you hear. It's like the last part of it. And it fades in like somebody had forgotten to hit record or something. It's just bizarre. It's like, what is going on? So all you hear is the dit 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 dit, and everyone starts clapping, and you're like, wait a minute, I want to hear the Sweet. I want to hear the whole thing. Like, why was that only like a little part of it? This corrects that completely in a huge, awesome, beautiful way. It corrects that. And this version's great. It's so good. And Blackbird, they always nailed Blackbird. What a great cover. Love that. Love their version of that. Helplessly Hoping, I talked about earlier. Guinevere's really cool. David just does his thing. And Lady of the Island is Graham. Like, his voice is just crystal clear, and it's like, oh, it's so cool. And then you hear things like the set list on this is cool. Go Back Home, which is on the Stills solo record. He plays it here. And then I've Loved Her So Long, Neil. That's another solo song from Neil that you never heard. He probably played this. I don't think he ever played it again live. I mean, this might be the only time. Who knows? But I love that track. Such a great song. And then You Don't Have to Cry, which is a staple, ends it, which is great. And then they move to the electric set, and Long Time Gone, of course, Wooden Ships, of course, great versions of it. Bluebird Revisited, right? There's another rare track where, that was on the second Stills record with horns, where he was trying to do this sort of Chicago, horn thing, and the Blood, Sweat, and Tears thing. But this one, there's obviously no horns. It's just guitars, and it's great. It's like, I love to hear that version. It's a little more raw version of it. I love it. And then Sea of Madness is another kind of deep track from Neil that he played with CSNY, but he didn't really play it that much after this, after 69. And then they do this really long Down by the River, which is cool, and end with Find the Cost of Freedom, which they did almost every concert. They would end with that. That was kind of their goodnight song. But yeah, I mean, it sounds so good. It's so well played. You can feel the love on the record. You can feel it coming through the grooves. You know, this was like new. It was a new relationship still. They were all in love with each other. In fact, I think even Graham Nash in the there's like liner notes in the middle. In fact, I'll show you because it's a really cool picture too. I mean, that's a great shot of them live. Get that. And then you can see there's like each member does like some liner notes there. And I think Graham says something about, you know, this is when we were in our honeymoon phase. Like we were still so all in love with each other, and we had found something new, and it was brand new still. And everyone was, you know, it was like lovey-dovey, you know. Of course, we know that the history of CSNY was not always lovey-dovey. Things got kind of nasty at times, actually. So it's nice to hear them like loving each other. And this is what the, you know, the legend was based on, was just concerts like this where people would go and see them and go, oh my God, that was a great concert. Holy crap. You know, and then they'd want to go see them again. And of course, they got immortalized on the Woodstock movie and soundtrack as well in '69. So once that movie came out, they got their stature went even higher. So, you know, so really they were. I always say this about CSNY: they were really on fire from the moment they formed and through 1970. And actually, really, even the solo projects I mentioned, I mean, they really, for the first part of the 70s, they were all on fire. It was just pretty amazing. Like they barely put a foot wrong for like 5 years. And then after that, things really started to fall off, and they never quite recovered, if we're honest about it. So at least for CSN particularly, they had moments here and there. I mean, the CSN record is really good. I really enjoy that record, and I'm going to do a CSN ranking at some point. I'm talking a lot about the albums, but I don't want to do talk too much about the albums, because I'm going to do a separate video with a ranking. So if you guys are interested in that, let me know if you'd want to see me do a CSNY ranking, because I think it'd be fun to do. It's not a huge catalog, so it wouldn't be that hard. But yeah, this CSNY Live at Fillmore East 69 is just fantastic. It's so good. And that's where you go, okay, this is the magic of this band, and you can hear it on this album. It's just so good. If you're a fan, it's an absolute essential. It's a 5-star album, in my opinion. It's just so good. And it's just them at their peak, at their absolute, possibly at their peak. Maybe in the 70s they hit even higher peaks. But the last thing I was going to say, what's interesting is that every live album has different rhythm section, right? So, so this one has Dallas Taylor and Greg Reeves. So Dallas Taylor on drums, who played on the album, the debut record, and Deja Vu, and Greg Reeves, who plays on Deja Vu. So that's the rhythm section with this record. And then with there was some tumult with, you know, Stills and Young and disagreements, and so for some reason Neil didn't like Dallas Taylor. They didn't get along, so he wanted to get rid of Dallas. So they ended up bringing in Johnny Barbada, I think is his name, Johnny Barbada, I think is how you say it, from the Turtles. I think he was with the Turtles, and he came in and played drums. And then Fuzzy Samuels came in on bass, who joined Stills on in Manassas, which is another amazing solo project from Stills. Back in the day, that album was so good. That double record, amazing. So that's that. And then I think with Allies, it's Joe Vitale on drums, and God, who's playing bass on this? Is it Chocolate Perry? I think is playing bass on this. Is that right? That was his nickname, right? Anyway, I don't know. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know. I think it's George Perry is his name. I think he's playing bass. Anyway, and Mike Finnegan is playing, I think, on Allies as well. He played with Stills and CSN for years and years. So anyway, I think that's it. That's the last thing I have to say about this. So what do you guys think? Let me know below what are your takes on these records, and what do you think? With the ranking, and would you do it differently? And that's it. Let me know what you think. And of course, if you like what you see, please hit like and subscribe to the channel. Subscribing to the channel helps me to grow. And if if you're liking the content, then you don't want to miss anything, right? So if you're subscribed, it'll come up. You won't miss anything. So that's another reason to subscribe. And thank you to all my subscribers who have already hit that button. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much. This has been a fun ride, and there's a lot more coming. I'm always thinking of stuff, always thinking. So I don't know what my next video is going to be. It might be the cars. I might be doing something with Davey Cretin coming up here. So there's a little teaser. Finishing our cars series. So yeah, that's it. Hope everyone's doing well, and go listen to some CSNY live stuff, especially that 69 record. Oh my God. Go listen to that. If you're a fan, if you haven't heard it yet, you'll be blown away. Amazing. All right, guys, that's it. See you next time on Curless Mania. Later.